My son and his wife were hosting my 69th birthday. The house was full of people I did not know drinking expensive champagne I suspected I had unknowingly paid for. I was smiling, trying to be the grateful father, when my wife Viola leaned in close. Her voice was a terrified whisper that chilled my blood. "Take the keys, Cyrus. We are leaving right now. Do not run. Just walk to the back door and act like nothing is wrong." I thought she was joking, or maybe just tired of the noise, until she locked the truck doors, her hands shaking, and said, "Look at this." She shoved her phone in my face. What I saw on that screen made my heart stop. It was not a party itinerary. It was a receipt for a secure room in a state-run mental facility and a time-stamped order for an involuntary psychiatric hold. They were not throwing me a party. They were waiting for the extraction team to come and take me away forever. Before I tell you how I declared war on my own flesh and blood, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had to cut a toxic family member out of your life to survive. I am Cyrus Blackwood. For 40 years, I have let the world believe I am just a retired mechanic with grease permanently etched into my fingerprints. I drive a 10-year-old Ford pickup. I wear flannel shirts and work boots. I live in the same 3-bedroom house in Decatur that I bought in 1985. To my neighbors, I am just old Cyrus who fixes lawnmowers on the weekends. To my son Tyrone and his wife Skylar, I am a simple-minded old man who got lucky with a small pension and a workers' compensation settlement. They have no idea who I really am. They do not know about Blackwood Logistics. They do not know that the fleet of 200 trucks moving freight across the Southeast belongs to me. They do not know that I own the warehouse district where Tyrone works as a mid-level manager. I kept it secret to teach my son the value of $1. I wanted him to be a man, not a trust fund baby. But as I stood in the foyer of the mansion Tyrone was renting in Buckhead, a house I was secretly paying for through a shell company because he could not make rent, I realized I had failed. "Happy birthday, Dad," Tyrone said, coming down the grand staircase. He looked nervous. He was sweating through his silk shirt, even though the air conditioning was blasting. He was 38 years old, but in that moment, he looked like a child who had broken a vase and was trying to hide the pieces. "Thanks, son," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. Then Skylar appeared. My daughter-in-law is a woman who smiles with her mouth but never with her eyes. She is the kind of woman who treats waiters like furniture. She walked up to me holding a plastic garment bag like it was a dead rat. "Cyrus, we need you to change," she said. Her voice was high and tight. "Change?" I asked, looking down at my best Sunday suit. It was clean, it was pressed. Viola had ironed it herself that morning. "Yes, change," Skylar said, pushing the bag into my chest. "This is a formal event, Cyrus. We have investors here, important people from the club. We cannot have you walking around looking like you just came from the garage." I unzipped the bag. Inside was a polyester suit. It was bright blue. It looked cheap. It looked like something a clown would wear to a funeral. "I am not wearing this, Skylar," I said. "Please, Dad," Tyrone interjected, stepping between us. "Just for the photos. We want everything to be perfect. Do it for me." I looked at my son. I saw the desperation in his eyes. I thought he was just embarrassed by his old working-class father. It hurt, but I was used to it. So I took the suit. "Fine," I said. "I will change in the guest room." "No," Skylar said quickly. "Not the guest room. The caterers are setting up in there. Use the pantry off the kitchen. It is private enough. They made me change in a pantry." I stood there smelling onions and cleaning supplies, squeezing into a suit that was 2 sizes too small while listening to the laughter outside. When I came out, Skylar looked me up and down and nodded, not with approval but with a sneer. "Better," she said. "Now listen, Cyrus. When people ask, just say you used to do landscaping for the family. Do not talk about the mechanic shop. Do not talk about the old neighborhood. Just smile and nod. Grab a drink and stay in the kitchen area. We will call you out when it is time for the cake." She turned on her heel and walked away. I stood there feeling the blood pound in my ears. Landscaping. She wanted to introduce me as the help at my own birthday party. I saw Viola across the room. She was wearing her favorite yellow dress, looking regal as a queen despite the way these people looked through her. She caught my eye. She saw the blue polyester suit. She saw the humiliation on my face. She started to move toward me, but Skylar intercepted her. I saw Skylar say something sharp and point toward the kitchen. Viola nodded, keeping her face calm, but I knew that look. That was the look she gave right before she handled business. I retreated to the kitchen as ordered. It was a massive space filled with catering staff. I stood in the corner feeling like a stranger in my son's life. I watched Tyrone through the swinging door. He was drinking heavily. He was laughing too loud. He kept checking his watch. Every time the doorbell rang, he would jump. Something is wrong, I muttered to myself. This does not feel like a party. It feels like a wake. I needed fresh air. I stepped out the back door into the garden. It was manicured perfectly, not a leaf out of place. I was about to sit on a stone bench when Viola came bursting out the side door. She was moving fast. Her face was pale, an ashen color I had not seen since her mother passed away. She did not look at me. She grabbed my arm with a grip like iron. "Cyrus, shut up and listen to me," she hissed. "Viola, what is going on?" I asked, reaching for her. She slapped my hand away. "Do not touch me. Do not draw attention. Listen." I went to find a bathroom. The one downstairs was occupied, so I went up to the master bedroom. The door was open. Skylar's tablet was on the bed. It was lit up. So I said, confused. "So I looked," Viola said. Her voice broke. "Cyrus, they are not waiting for a cake. They are waiting for a van." She pulled her phone out of her purse. Her hands were shaking so bad she almost dropped it. "I took a picture," she whispered. "Look." I squinted at the screen. It was a photo of a tablet screen. An email was open. The subject line read, "Confirmation of involuntary transport." I read the text. "Patient Cyrus Blackwood. Transport scheduled for 8 p.m. Sedation approved if necessary. Destination Shady Pines Behavioral Health Center. Secure unit." Below that was another tab she had photographed. It was a Zillow listing. For my house. The house we had lived in for 40 years. The status was set to pending sale. Seller agent Skylar Blackwood acting power of attorney. The air left my lungs. I felt like I had been kicked in the chest by a mule. "They are committing me," I whispered. "They are stealing everything," Cyrus, Viola said. She grabbed my lapels of that cheap blue suit. "Look at me. We have 10 minutes. Tyrone is in the hallway distraction the guests. Skylar is in the garage talking to someone on the phone. I heard her say, 'Make sure the restraints are tight. He is stronger than he looks.'" My vision blurred. The rage was hot and white. My own son. I had paid off his gambling debts 3 times. I had covered his rent for 5 years. I had loved him when he was unlovable. And this was his repayment. A straitjacket and a sale sign on my front lawn. "We are leaving," Viola said. "Give me the keys to the truck." I reached into my pocket. I still had them. "Let's go," I said. We started walking toward the side gate. We tried to look casual, just an old couple taking a stroll in the garden. We were 10 feet from the gate when the back door flew open. Tyrone stood there. He looked wild. His eyes were red-rimmed. He held a glass of scotch that was sloshing over the sides. "Hey," he shouted. "Where are you going?" I froze. I felt Viola tense up beside me. "We are just getting some air, son," I said. My voice sounded calm. I was surprised by that. No air," Tyrone stammered. He stumbled down the steps. "You have to come inside. The surprise. It is almost here. You cannot miss the surprise, Dad. It is a big one. It will solve everything." He was blocking the path. He was bigger than me now, soft from easy living, but heavy. "We are leaving, Tyrone," I said. "Move." He lunged forward and grabbed my shoulder. His fingers dug into the cheap fabric of the blue suit. "You are not going anywhere, old man," he snarled. His mask slipped. I saw the hatred there. I saw the greed. "You are going to sit in that chair and you are going to take your medicine like a good boy. I have worked too hard for this. I am not letting you ruin my payday." He pulled me. He was trying to drag me back toward the house. I looked at him. I did not see my son. I saw a stranger. I saw a threat. I spent 40 years lifting engine blocks and wrestling tires off semi-trucks. I might be 69, but I am made of iron and concrete. Tyrone is made of scotch and excuses. I grabbed his wrist. I twisted it hard. He yelped. I stepped in and shoved him. I put all my weight into it, all the disappointment, all the betrayal. He flew backward. He tripped over his own expensive Italian loafers and landed hard in Skylar's prize rose bushes. "Run," I yelled to Viola. We sprinted. My knees protested, but I ignored them. We burst through the gate and into the driveway. My old Ford was parked between a Mercedes and a Tesla like a jagged rock in a jewelry box. I fumbled with the keys. I dropped them. Cyrus, Viola screamed. I looked back. Tyrone was scrambling up from the bushes. Skylar was running out the front door. She was screaming something. She was pointing at us. I snatched the keys from the asphalt. I jammed them into the door. We jumped in. I cranked the engine. It roared to life, that beautiful, ugly sound of a diesel engine that knows how to work. Tyrone was banging on the hood. "Dad, stop. You are sick. You do not know what you are doing." I put it in reverse. I floored it. The tires squealed. Tyrone had to jump out of the way. I saw him fall again in the rearview mirror. I saw Skylar standing on the porch screaming into her phone. I did not stop. I drove over their manicured lawn. I crushed a row of solar lights. I bounced over the curb and hit the asphalt of the street. I drove. I did not know where I was going. I just drove. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. Viola was crying silently beside me, clutching her purse to her chest. We were 3 miles away before I slowed down. I pulled into the parking lot of a Waffle House. It was the only place with lights on. I turned off the engine. The silence in the cab was deafening. I looked at Viola. "Let me see it again," I said. She handed me the phone. I zoomed in on the photo. 8 p.m. I looked at the dashboard clock. It was 7:45. If we had stayed 15 more minutes, men in white coats would have dragged me out of my own birthday party. I looked at the Zillow listing again. The house. My house. Listed for $450,000. Cash only. Quick closing. They were selling it for half its value just to move it fast. I looked at Viola. "They think I am just a gardener," I said. My voice was low. It sounded like gravel grinding together. "They think I am a senile old man with a pension check and a paid-off house." Viola wiped her eyes. She looked at me. Her fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard anger. "What do we do?" "Cyrus," she asked. "We cannot go home. They will be waiting." "No," I said. "We cannot go home." I reached under the seat. I pulled out a burner phone I kept there for business. I dialed a number I had memorized but never thought I would have to use for this. It rang twice. Strickland, a voice answered. Crisp, professional, expensive. "It is Cyrus," I said. "Mr. Blackwood," the lawyer said. "It is late. Is everything all right?" "No," I said. "Initiate the Omega Protocol." There was a pause on the line. "Are you sure, sir? That is a scorched earth contingency. Once we start, there is no going back. It will freeze everything. It will trigger the audits. It will unleash the hounds." I looked at the photo of the transport order one last time. I looked at the name of the man who signed as my guardian. Tyrone Blackwood. "I am sure," I said. "Burn it down, Strickland. Burn it all down." I hung up the phone. I looked at Viola. "Happy birthday to me," I said. "Now buckle up. We have work to do." But the night was just beginning. As we sat there catching our breath, my personal phone buzzed. It was a text from Tyrone. "Dad, please come back. The doctors are here. They just want to help. You are having an episode. If you do not come back, I have to call the police. I have to report you as a danger to yourself. Do not make me do this." I stared at the screen. He was doubling down. He was going to use the police to hunt me down. I looked at Viola. "We need to get to the bank," I said. "But not our bank. The safety deposit box." "Which one?" she asked. "The one they do not know about," I said. "The one with the real will." I put the truck in gear, but as I pulled out of the lot, I saw a police cruiser turn the corner, its lights flashing silently. It was heading toward us. Viola gasped. "Get down," she whispered. I ducked. The cruiser rolled past slowly. The officer was scanning the parking lots. They were looking for an old blue Ford. They were looking for an escaped mental patient. I waited until they passed. Then I turned the opposite direction. "They want to play games," I said. "Fine, let's play." I drove into the night, leaving the life I knew behind. My son wanted a war. He had no idea he had just declared it on the general. The rain started falling hard as we merged onto the interstate. It hammered against the roof of my old Ford pickup like 1,000 tiny fists trying to break in. My personal phone was sitting in the cup holder, buzzing and vibrating against the plastic. It was relentless. Every 3 seconds, the screen would light up the dark cab. Tyrone. 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 I glanced down at the preview of the messages. "Dad, you are having an episode. Come back. Dad, you are confused. You forgot your medication. Dad, we just want to help you." Gaslighting. That is the word the young folks use. He was trying to rewrite reality in real time. He was trying to make me doubt my own mind. For a second I almost did. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, my heart was racing, maybe I was losing it, maybe I had misunderstood. Then I looked at Viola. She was staring out the passenger window watching the blurred lights of Atlanta pass by. Her hand was gripping the door handle so tight her knuckles were the color of ash. She was not confused, she was terrified. And that made my mind clear as a winter morning. I drove past the exit for our neighborhood. I drove past the exit for the warehouse district I owned but never visited during the day. I kept driving until the city lights faded into the rearview mirror. I remembered the last time I drove this fast in the rain. It was 5 years ago. Tyrone had called me at 2 in the morning. He was crying. He was in a holding cell in Fulton County. Gambling debts. A loan shark with a short temper and a long memory had pressed charges for a bad check. I did not hesitate then. I got up, I put on my boots, I drove down there and paid his bail, $10,000 cash, money I had pulled from the safe under the floorboards. I remembered the look on his face when he walked out. He looked small, he looked grateful. "I will pay you back, Dad," he had said. "I swear, I am done with that life." I believed him. I hugged him. I told him everyone makes mistakes. I told him a Blackwood man learns from his falls. But he had not learned. He had just learned how to hide it better. And now I realized he had not been grateful. He had been calculating. He had looked at the cash in my hand, not as a lifeline, but as a sample. He wanted the whole mine. I drove for an hour. My knee was throbbing. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a cold exhaustion that settled deep in my bones. "We need to stop," Viola said. Her voice was quiet. "Cyrus, you cannot keep driving. You are drifting." She was right. I saw a sign for a Motel 6. The neon sign was missing the letter M, so it just read Hotel 6. It looked run down. It looked cheap. It looked safe. I pulled into the parking lot. There were only a few cars. A semi-truck was idling in the back. I recognized the logo on the trailer. It was one of mine, one of the trucks I had bought 3 years ago. The driver was probably asleep in the cab, resting before a long haul. He worked for me and he did not even know my name. I turned off the ignition. The silence rushing back in was loud. "Stay here," I told Viola. "I will get us a room." I walked into the lobby. It smelled like stale smoke and pine cleaner. The night clerk was a young kid with headphones around his neck. He did not look up when I walked in. "Room for 2, I said. He tapped on the keyboard without making eye contact. $65, he mumbled. ID and card. I pulled out my wallet. It was an old leather thing worn smooth by years of use. I took out my debit card. It was a standard issue card from the local credit union. The one I used for groceries and gas. The one Tyrone knew about. I slid it into the machine. "Please wait." I stood there drumming my fingers on the counter. I just wanted to lie down. I just wanted to close my eyes and wake up from this nightmare. The machine beeped. A harsh red light flashed. Declined. I frowned. That account had $5,000 in it. I kept it there for emergencies. "Try it again," I said. "It must be the chip." "It is old." The kid sighed. He took the card. He swiped it on his side. He typed something. He frowned. "It says, 'Do not honor,'" he said. "What does that mean?" I asked. My voice rose. "It means the bank flagged it," he said, handing it back. "Stolen or lost. You got cash." Old timer, I checked my wallet. I had $40. Not enough. I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. I am a man who could buy this entire hotel chain with a signature. I have accounts with balances that look like phone numbers. But standing there in my cheap blue suit with the onion smell still on it, I was broke. I stepped away from the counter. I pulled out my phone. I dialed the number on the back of the card. Automated voice. "Please enter your card number." I punched it in. "The card you entered has been reported lost or stolen," the voice said. "To speak with a representative, press 0. I pressed 0. I pressed it so hard I thought I would crack the screen. It rang. A woman answered. "Security department," she said. "This is Cyrus Blackwood," I said. My voice was shaking, but I kept it level. My card was declined. "I am standing in a hotel lobby. I need to pay for a room. Unlock it." "Sir, I see a note here on your file," she said. Her voice was cool, detached. "This card was reported lost 2 hours ago by your power of attorney holder." "My what?" I roared. "Your power of attorney," she repeated. "Mr. Tyrone Blackwood. He flagged the account. He also placed a freeze on all associated assets due to... Let me see here. Due to the account holder's medical incapacity. The room spun. Medical incapacity. He had not even waited for the court order. He had called the bank and told them I was crazy. And because he was my son, because he had my social security number, because he had probably forged my signature on a form weeks ago. They believed him. "Unlock it," I shouted. "I am Cyrus Blackwood. I am right here. I am not incapacitated." "Sir, I cannot do that," she said. "Once the flag is in the system, we need the guardian to lift it. Or you can come into a branch with legal documentation proving your competency. But sir, if you are having a medical emergency, you should hang up and call 911. She thought I was crazy. I could hear it in her tone. She was talking to me like I was a confused child. I hung up. I stared at the phone. I walked out of the lobby. The rain soaked me instantly. I did not feel it. I got back in the truck. Viola looked at me. She saw my face. She knew. "They locked it," she whispered. "They took it all," I said. I slammed my hand against the dashboard. "They took my money, Viola. My own money. I worked 40 years. I broke my back. I missed dinners. I missed holidays. For that money." And he took it with a phone call. My phone buzzed again. It was not a text this time. It was a voicemail. From Skylar. I did not want to listen to it. But I had to know. I pressed play. "Hi, Dad." Skylar's voice filled the cab. It was sweet, sugary sweet, like poison hidden in a peach cobbler. "Dad, we know you are stressed. We know you are confused. We tracked your phone. We know you are at the motel off exit 42. I looked up at the sky. They were tracking me. Of course they were. I was on the family plan. "Listen, Dad," she continued. Her voice dropped an octave. It became hard, cold. "You need to stay there. The police are on their way to pick you up. We told them you were agitated. We told them you might be armed. You know how the police are with confused older men, especially men who look like you. We do not want an accident, Dad. We do not want you to get hurt. Just stay put. Put your hands where they can see them. It will be over soon." The message ended. I sat there frozen. She had done it. She had played the card I feared most. She had weaponized the police against me. She knew exactly what she was saying. She knew the history. She knew the fear every black man in America lives with, and she used it. She was not just trying to commit me. She was willing to let me get shot to secure her inheritance. "She called the cops on me, Viola," I said. My voice was a whisper. "She told them I am armed." Viola gasped. She covered her mouth. "We have to go," she said. "Cyrus, move." I looked at the phone in my hand. It was the leash. It was the shackle. I opened the door. I stepped out into the rain. I looked at the device. It was an iPhone. Tyrone had bought it for me last Christmas. A gift, he had said. "So we can stay connected, Dad." A tracking device. I raised my arm. I threw the phone as hard as I could against the pavement. It shattered. The glass exploded. The screen went black. I stomped on it. I ground my heel into the pieces until it was just plastic and metal dust. I got back in the truck. I was soaked. I was shivering, but I was not shaking anymore. The fear was gone. It had burned away in the heat of my rage. They wanted a confused old man. They wanted a victim. They forgot who I am. I am not just a gardener. I am not just a mechanic. I am the man who built an empire from a single rusty van. I am the man who navigated unions and recessions and competitors who wanted to bury me. I turned the key. The engine roared. I looked at Viola. Her eyes were wide, but she was not crying anymore. She reached over and took my hand. "Where do we go?" she asked. "To the only place left," I said. "We go underground." I put the truck in gear and peeled out of the parking lot just as the sirens began to wail in the distance. I was done running. It was time to hunt. We parked the truck 3 blocks away under the cover of a massive oak tree that blocked the street lamp. It was 3 a.m. The neighborhood was dead silent except for the distant hum of the highway. Walking down the street where I had taught my son to ride a bike felt like walking through a graveyard. Every house I passed was a memory, and every shadow felt like an accusation. I kept my head down, pulling my collar up. Viola held my arm. Her grip was tight. She was trembling, but not from the cold. When we reached our driveway, I stopped. There was a sign on the lawn. It was a metal stake driven right into the heart of my prize-winning hydrangeas. For sale. Cash only. Immediate possession. I stared at it. That sign was not just advertising property, it was advertising my death. It was telling the world that Cyrus Blackwood was finished, that he was gone, that his legacy was being sold for parts. I wanted to rip it out of the ground. I wanted to throw it through the front window. But I did not. I was not a homeowner tonight. I was a thief, and thieves do not draw attention. We crept to the back door. I reached for my keys out of habit, but I stopped. Tyrone had changed the locks. I knew it. He had probably done it hours ago while I was driving aimlessly on the interstate. My own key. The key to the kingdom I built. It was useless metal now. We went to the basement window. It was small. Too small for most men, but I had lost weight recently and desperation makes you fit into places you should not. I used my pocket knife to pry the latch. It gave way with a rusted groan that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet night. I froze. I waited for lights to flick on in the neighbor's house. Nothing happened. I slid feet first into the darkness. I landed on the concrete floor of the laundry room. The air was stale. It smelled of mildew and unwashed clothes. It smelled of neglect. They had cut the power. The house was cold. It felt dead, like the soul had been sucked out of the drywall. I helped Viola through. We stood there in the dark of our own basement. Above us, the floorboards creaked. The house was settling. It sounded like footsteps. For a second, I thought they were here, waiting, with the police, with the doctors. But it was just the house groaning. It missed us. We moved up the stairs. The door to the kitchen was unlocked. We stepped onto the linoleum. The moonlight filtered through the blinds, casting prison bar shadows on the floor. I looked around. My coffee mug was still on the counter where I left it this morning. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Suddenly, headlights swept across the kitchen wall. A car was pulling into the driveway. I grabbed Viola and pulled her down behind the kitchen island. We huddled there in the darkness, knees against our chests. The front door lock clicked. It opened. Voices. It smells like poverty in here. That was Skylar. Her voice was sharp and loud, cutting through the sanctity of my home. "Keep your voice down," Tyrone hissed. "The neighbors are nosy." "Let them look," she laughed. It was a cruel sound. "We are the owners now, babe. We can do whatever we want." Footsteps. 3 sets. Heavy boots. That was Tyrone, the click-clack of high heels. Skylar. And a 3rd set. Leather soles. Soft. Sneaky. "This is the place," Tyrone said. "We need it moved fast. We are talking days, not weeks." I heard the 3rd man speak. His voice was oily. Slick. "I can move it," the stranger said. "But the price you are asking is low. Suspiciously low. The market is hot. Why the fire sale?" "We have a liquidity issue," Skylar said. "We need the cash for medical expenses. For the previous owner. He is very sick. Is very confused. We needed to get him into a facility immediately." I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. Medical expenses. She was selling my life's work to pay for my imprisonment. They walked into the living room. I peeked around the edge of the island. Skylar was wearing a white trench coat. She looked like she was inspecting a contaminated site. She walked over to the Persian rug in the center of the room. It was Viola's pride and joy, a gift from her grandmother. It was 70 years old, hand-woven. Skylar did not walk around it. She walked right over it. She ground her muddy heels into the intricate pattern. "This has to go," she said, wrinkling her nose. "It smells like old people. It smells like cabbage and Ben Gay. God, I hate that smell. It sticks to everything. We need to gut this place. Rip out the carpets, paint everything white, get rid of this junk." She kicked my favorite armchair, the leather recliner where I sat every Sunday to read the paper. Junk, she called it. Tyrone stood by the fireplace. He looked pale in the moonlight. He looked sick. "Can we get $450 for it?" he asked the broker. The broker laughed. "In this condition, with that smell, and a quick close, maybe $420. Cash." "Do it," Skylar said instantly. $420 is fine. That covers the deposit on the Sea Queen and leaves enough for the club fees." The Sea Queen. A boat. They were selling my house. The roof over my head. The place where I raised that ungrateful boy. To buy a boat. I felt a heat rise in my chest that was hotter than any fire. It started in my gut and spread to my fingertips. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to roar. I wanted to grab that woman by her expensive coat and throw her out the front door. I wanted to shake my son until his teeth rattled. I started to rise. My leg muscles tensed. I was going to kill them. I was going to end it right here. A hand touched my shoulder. Viola. She did not say a word. She just looked at me. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the moonlight. She shook her head. One slow, deliberate movement. No. She pressed her finger to her lips. Then she pointed down, toward the garage. She was right. Violence would only prove them right. If I attacked them now, I would be the crazy old man they claimed I was. I would be the danger to society. The police would come. I would go to jail or the asylum. And Skylar would win. She would get the house. She would get the boat. She would get the last laugh. I forced myself to breathe. In, out. I swallowed the rage. It tasted like battery acid. We listened as they moved through the house. They went into the master bedroom. I heard Skylar laughing. "Look at these clothes," she said. "Who wears this garbage? We can burn it all in the backyard. Save on hauling fees." They were talking about burning my life. "Let's sign the papers at the office tomorrow," the broker said. "I will have the cash ready by noon." "Perfect," Tyrone said. "Noon is good? We have a court hearing at 2. Just a formality to finalize the guardianship. Then the deed is mine to sign." They walked back to the door. "Make sure you lock it tight," Skylar said. "I do not want any squatters, especially not the previous tenant if he manages to find his way back here." They laughed. They actually laughed. The door closed. The lock clicked. I waited until the sound of their car faded down the street. Then I slumped against the cabinets. I felt like I had gone 12 rounds with a heavy weight. "They are going to burn my clothes," Viola whispered. "No, they are not," I said, "because by noon tomorrow this house will not be theirs to sell. Come on." We moved to the garage. It was detached, connected by a breezeway. I had built it myself 20 years ago. It was my sanctuary, my workshop. I went to the back corner. There was a heavy workbench there bolted to the floor. It was covered in oil stains and tools. "Help me move this," I said. Viola grabbed one end. I grabbed the other. We heaved. It scraped against the concrete. Underneath was a rubber mat. I pulled it back. There was nothing there, just concrete. But I knew better. I grabbed a sledgehammer from the wall. "Stand back," I said. I swung. I hit the floor. The concrete cracked. It was a false layer, thin, cosmetic. I hit it again and again. The rage I had suppressed in the kitchen flowed into my arms. I smashed the concrete until there was a hole. I reached in. I pulled out the dirt. My fingers brushed against cold metal. I pulled it out. A steel box. Fireproof. Waterproof. Bomb-proof. I set it on the floor. I wiped the dust off the top. I dialed the combination. Left, right, left. It clicked. I opened the lid. Inside sat the truth, not cash. Cash is for amateurs. Cash burns. Cash gets spent on boats. Inside were the bearer bonds. Inside were the original incorporation documents for Blackwood Logistics. Inside were the stock certificates. 51% of the voting shares, and underneath that was the deed to the land underneath the warehouse district. Tyrone thought he was a manager at a logistics company. He did not know he was an employee of a holding company owned by a trust. And the sole trustee of that trust was the man holding the sledgehammer. I also found the cash I kept for emergencies. $50,000 in $100 bills. I looked at Viola. "We have the ammo," I said. She nodded. Her face was hard. She looked like a soldier. "Make the call," she said. I pulled out the burner phone. It was 4 in the morning. I dialed Strickland. He answered on the first ring. "I have the box," I said. "Good," Strickland said. His voice was thick with sleep but sharp with intent. "I have been busy too, Cyrus. I pulled the financials. It is worse than we thought. Tyrone has been skimming from the warehouse inventory for 2 years. He is cooking the books. And Skylar. She has 7 credit cards maxed out in your name. They routed the statements to a P.O. box. They are desperate," I said. "They are selling the house at noon. They cannot sell what they do not own," Strickland said. "But we need to stop the guardianship hearing. If the judge signs that order at 2 o'clock, Tyrone gets power over the trust. He gets voting rights. He could dissolve the company before we can stop him." I looked at the box. I looked at the hammer. "I am not going to stop the hearing," I said. Silence on the line. Sir Strickland said slowly, "If you do not stop it, you will be declared incompetent. You will lose your civil rights." "No," I said. "I am going to let them walk into that courtroom. I am going to let them stand before the judge. I am going to let them think they have won. And then what Strickland asked. And then I am going to walk in, I said, not as the defendant, but as the landlord. I explained the plan. It was risky. It was dangerous. It required me to walk into a trap and trust that I could spring it before it snapped my neck. Strickland listened. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. That is biblical, sir, he said. That is Old Testament. They want a show, I said. I will give them a finale. I hung up. I handed a stack of cash to Viola. Go buy us some clothes, I said. Not the cheap stuff. Go to the city. Go to the boutique you like. Buy the red dress. The one you said was too much. What about you? She asked. I am going to get a haircut, I said. And a shave. And I am going to buy a suit. A real suit. Italian wool. Silk lining. We are done hiding Viola. We walked out of the garage. The sun was just starting to crack the horizon. It painted the sky in shades of blood and gold. I looked at my house one last time. Goodbye, I whispered. We got into the truck. I put the steel box on the seat between us. It felt heavy. It felt like judgment. I drove toward the city. The traffic was light. The world was waking up. People were going to work. They had no idea that a war had just started in their midst. My son wanted to play the king. He wanted to sit on the throne. He forgot one thing. The king never abdicates. I touched the scar on my hand, a reminder of a gear that slipped 30 years ago. Pain is a teacher. Today class was in session. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor of the Sovereign Tower took exactly 30 seconds, but it felt like traveling between two different worlds. Down on the street level, I had walked in as an invisible old man holding onto his wife's arm. But as the numbers climbed higher, I felt my spine straighten. I adjusted the cuffs of my new Italian wool suit. It was charcoal gray, tailored to within an inch of its life. I had shaved my beard, leaving only a trimmed mustache. I looked 10 years younger and $1 million richer. Viola stood beside me in a crimson dress that made her look like the matriarch she truly was. She squeezed my hand. We were not victims anymore. We were hunters entering our command center. The doors slid open with a soft chime. The reception area was all glass and polished marble. A young woman sat behind a desk that cost more than my first 3 cars combined. She looked up, ready to ask if we were lost or delivering lunch. Then she saw the suit. She saw the way I walked. She saw the look in my eyes. She stood up so fast she knocked over her pen holder. "Mr. Blackwood," she stammered. "Mr. Strickland is expecting you. Go right in." I did not knock. I pushed open the double mahogany doors to the corner office. Strickland was standing by the window looking out over the Atlanta skyline. He turned around. He was a shark in a 3-piece suit, a man who billed $800 an hour and was worth every penny. He did not smile often. He smiled now. "Mr. Chairman," Strickland said. He walked over and shook my hand with both of his. It has been too long. He did not treat me like a mechanic. He did not treat me like a senile old man. He treated me like what I was, the majority shareholder of a logistics empire that moved half the freight in Georgia. "You look ready for war, Cyrus," he said, gesturing to the conference table. "I am," I said, sitting down at the head of the table. Viola took the seat to my right. "Tell me what we are dealing with." Strickland opened a thick leather folder. He slid 3 piles of documents toward me. "It is worse than we thought," he said. His voice was clinical cold. "I ran a forensic audit on your son and his wife starting at 4 a.m. It is a bloodbath, Cyrus." I looked at the first pile. It was Tyrone's financials. "He is not just gambling," Strickland said. "He is bleeding the company. He works as a floor manager at your distribution center, B. Right. He has been diverting inventory for 18 months. High-end electronics, auto parts. He marks them as damaged or lost in transit, then sells them out the back door to a fence in Stone Mountain." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Stealing. My son was stealing from the very company I built to leave to him. He was stealing his own inheritance 1 pallet at a time. "How much?" I asked. Strickland adjusted his glasses. "Roughly $200,000 in inventory. But that is just the start. He owes a bookie in Atlantic City another $80,000. The man has threatened to break his legs. That is why he is desperate. He needs a lump sum to buy his life back." I pushed the paper away. I looked at the second pile. Skylar. And her I asked. Strickland let out a dry laugh. "She is a piece of work. She has 7 credit cards maxed out, all in your name but routed to a P.O. box. She has racked up $150,000 in debt. Clothes, spa treatments, vacations she told you were business trips for her consulting firm. She does not have a consulting firm, does she? I asked. She has an Instagram account, Strickland said. She pays for followers. She stages photo shoots to look like a wealthy influencer. She is living a fantasy life funded by your credit rating. But here's the kicker, Cyrus. He slid the third document forward. It was a single sheet of paper. They found the credit union account, Strickland said, the one with your pension from the mechanic days. It has about $12,000 in it. I nodded. That was my rainy day fund, the money I actually earned turning wrenches. They filed an emergency motion this morning, Strickland said. They are claiming you are using that money to buy drugs or fund a manic episode. They want to seize it immediately to protect you. I stared at the paper. They were going after pennies. I had millions sitting in the trust, but they were fighting over $12,000. It was pathetic. It was greedy. It was small. They want to put me in a home for $12,000, I whispered. No, Strickland corrected me. They want to put you in a home so they can sell your house to pay off the bookie and the credit cards. The $12,000 is just for walking around money. They see you as a carcass, Cyrus. They are just picking the meat off the bones. Viola made a sound like a wounded animal. She covered her face with her hands. They are monsters, she said. Strickland looked at me. His eyes were hard. We can stop this right now, Cyrus, he said. I can file an injunction. I can reveal your assets. I can show the court you are the CEO of Blackwood Logistics. I can have Tyrone arrested for embezzlement by lunchtime. We can crush them with a single phone call. I stood up. I walked to the window. I looked down at the city. I saw the cars moving like ants. I saw the people rushing to work. Somewhere down there, my son was probably signing a paper claiming I didn't know my own name. If we strike now, I said, they will just claim it was a misunderstanding. They will say they were worried. They will play the victim. Tyrone will say he stole because he had a problem. Skylar will cry. They might avoid jail. I turned back to the room. I do not want them to avoid jail, I said, and I do not want them to keep my name. What are you proposing? Strickland asked. I want to give them exactly what they want, I said. Strickland frowned. I do not understand. They want a senile old man, I said. I will give them one. They want a competency hearing. I will go. They want to stand in front of a judge and lie under oath. I will let them. Strickland tapped his pen on the table. He was starting to see it. You want to trap them, he said. I want them to dig the hole so deep they can never climb out, I said. I want them to commit perjury. I want them to present the fake medical records. I want them to testify on the record that I am incompetent. And then when the trap snaps shut, I want there to be no escape. It is dangerous, Cyrus Strickland warned. You are talking about the Trojan horse strategy. You have to walk into the enemy camp unarmed. You have to let them capture you. If the judge believes them even for a second, you could be remanded to state custody before I can intervene. You will have to spend time in the system. I looked at my hands. They were strong. They were steady. I can handle a few days in the system, I said. I grew up in the system, Strickland. I know how to survive. But there is a risk, Strickland pressed. If the doctor they hired is good, he is not good. I cut him off. He is bought. And bought men are sloppy. I looked at Viola. Are you with me? I asked her. It means watching them hurt me. It means letting them win for a few days. Viola stood up. She smoothed her red dress. Her eyes were dry now. Let them take you, she said. Let them think they have won. Because the look on Skylar's face when the truth comes out will be worth every second of misery. I turned to Strickland. Set it up, I said. Do not file the injunction. Let the hearing proceed. Let the police put out the bolo. In fact, call the precinct. Tell them you have a tip on where the confused Mr. Blackwood might be. Where will you be? Strickland asked. I will be at the park, I said. The one near the house, feeding the pigeons, looking lost, looking like easy prey. Strickland smiled. It was a terrifying thing to see. You are a cold man, Cyrus Blackwood, he said. I buttoned my jacket. I am a father, I said, and I'm about to teach my son the last lesson he will ever learn from me. Action and consequence. I took Viola's hand. We walked out of the office. I left the titan of industry in that room. I hunched my shoulders. I shuffled my feet. By the time we reached the elevator, I was just old Cyrus again. The gardener, the mechanic, the victim. I was walking into the fire. But this time, I was bringing the gasoline. We were driving down MLK Boulevard just 3 blocks from the park where I told Strickland I would be. I was driving 10 miles under the limit, gripping the wheel at 10 and 2 like a terrified student driver. Viola was staring out the window, her posture rigid. Then the blue lights exploded in the rearview mirror. They blinded me. The siren chirped once, then wailed a short, aggressive burst. It was time. I looked at Viola. "Showtime," I whispered. I let my shoulders slump. I relaxed my facial muscles until my jaw hung slightly loose. I let the intelligence drain out of my eyes, leaving behind only a watery confusion. I was not Cyrus Blackwood, the CEO. I was just an old man who had lost his way. I pulled over, hitting the curb hard enough to jar my teeth. It was a nice touch. The officer approached the window. His hand was resting on his holster. He saw an old black truck and two black faces. He was on edge. "License and registration," he barked. I fumbled with my wallet. I dropped it on the floor. I reached down, slow and shaky. "I am just going to the store, officer," I said. My voice was thin and reedy. I need milk." "Sir, get out of the vehicle," the officer said. Viola started crying. It was a high-pitched, fearful sound. "Please, officer, he is sick. He does not know where he is. Do not hurt him." I stumbled out of the truck. I made sure to trip over my own feet. The officer grabbed my arm to steady me, but his grip was hard. He spun me around and pushed me against the bed of the truck. "Cyrus Blackwood," he said into his radio. "I have the subject. He seems disoriented." Suddenly, a black SUV screeched to a halt behind the cruiser. Tyrone jumped out. He was wearing a concerned face like a mask. Skylar was right behind him, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. "Officer, thank God," Tyrone shouted, running toward us. "That is my father. He has been missing for hours. He is having a psychotic break." I looked at Tyrone. I let my eyes widen in fake recognition. "Ty," I mumbled. "Ty, did you bring the fishing poles? The fish are biting." Tyrone looked at the officer. "See?" he said. "He thinks it is 1995. He is dangerous, officer. He threatened his wife. He destroyed property. We have a medical transport team on the way." The officer looked at me. He saw a confused old man in a cheap suit rambling about fishing. He relaxed. He took his hand off his gun. "Okay, son," the officer said. "You take it from here. Do you need help getting him into the transport?" "No, we got it," Skylar said, stepping forward. She grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my bicep like talons. "Come on, Dad. Let us go get some ice cream." She pulled me toward a white van that had just pulled up. It did not have markings. Two men in white scrubs got out. They were not doctors. They were bouncers. I could tell by the way they moved. Viola tried to follow me, but Skylar blocked her path. "You ride with us," Mom, Skylar said. Her voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. "We need to talk about how you let him get this bad." They shoved me into the back of the van. There were no seats, just a metal bench and tie-down straps. The doors slammed shut, plunging me into darkness. The smell of bleach and stale sweat filled my nose. I sat there in the dark, feeling the van lurch forward. I did not fight. I did not scream. I just sat there and let the anger sharpen my mind like a whetstone. 20 minutes later, the van stopped. The doors opened. We were at a loading dock. Above the door, a sign read, "Serenity Hills Behavioral Health." It sounded like a spa. It looked like a prison. They marched me inside. The fluorescent lights hummed with a headache-inducing buzz. The walls were painted a sickly shade of beige meant to be calming, but it just felt oppressive. A doctor was waiting for us. He was a thin man with greasy hair and a stain on his white coat. Dr. Evans. I knew his type. He was not here to heal. He was here to bill insurance and sign whatever paper was put in front of him for a kickback. Tyrone and Skylar stood on either side of him. Viola was sitting in a chair in the corner looking small and terrified. "He has been violent," Dr. Skylar said. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing a small bruise on her arm. I knew for a fact she had bumped into a door frame 2 days ago, but now she was presenting it as evidence of my madness. He grabbed me. He was screaming about people stealing his money. He threw his phone at a wall. Dr. Evans nodded without even looking at me. Paranoia, aggression, disorientation, classic presentation for advanced dementia with psychotic features. He looked at me then. "Mr. Blackwood, do you know where you are?" he asked. I looked around the room. I let my eyes dart back and forth. "I need to fix the transmission on the red Chevy," I said. "The customer is waiting." Dr. Evans sighed and made a note on his clipboard. "Complete detachment from reality. Tyrone stepped forward. He held a clipboard with a stack of papers. "We need to get him admitted," Dr. Tyrone said, "but the insurance requires his signature for the voluntary hold until the court order comes through tomorrow. If he does not sign, we have to wait for a judge, and he might hurt himself by then." Dr. Evans waved his hand. "Get him to sign. If he cannot understand, just guide his hand. It is for his own good." Tyrone walked over to me. He loomed over the metal chair I was sitting in. He smelled of fear and expensive cologne. "Dad," he whispered. His voice was low so the doctor would not hear the threat. "Dad, you are going to sign this paper. If you do, I will tell the nice men to bring you a sandwich. I know you are hungry. If you do not sign, I will tell them to give you the shot, the one that makes you sleep for 2 days. And Mom will be all alone in that big empty house." He was threatening me with sedation. He was threatening Viola. He was using my hunger against me. I looked at him. I let my lip tremble. "I am hungry." "Ty," I whimpered. "Just sign the paper, old man," he hissed, thrusting the pen into my hand. I took the pen. It was a cheap ballpoint. My hand shook, not because I was acting, but because every muscle in my body wanted to drive that pen into his neck. I looked at the paper. Voluntary commitment and transfer of temporary guardianship. It was the death warrant for my freedom. I held the pen in my left hand. I am right-handed. I always have been. Tyrone knew that. Or he should have known that if he had ever paid attention to his father, but he was so focused on the victory, so focused on the money, he did not even notice. I put the tip of the pen to the paper. I let my hand shake violently. I started to scrawl. I did not write Cyrus Blackwood. I wrote J, then U, then D-A-S Judas. The betrayer. It was a messy, jagged scrawl. It looked like the writing of a man whose mind was gone. But it was clear enough if you looked. I finished the S with a trailing line that ripped through the paper. I dropped the pen. "I want my sandwich," I said. Tyrone snatched the clipboard. He did not even look at the signature. He just saw ink on the line. He turned to the doctor with a triumphant grin. "He signed it," Tyrone said. Dr. Evans glanced at the paper. "Good enough. Admit him to Ward C high security. No visitors until the hearing on Friday." Ward C. That was the lockdown unit. The place where they put the people society wanted to forget. Skylar clapped her hands together softly. "Oh, thank God. He is finally going to get the help he needs." She walked over to Viola. She put a hand on my wife's shoulder. "Come on, Mom," Skylar said. "We will take you home. You need to rest. We have a lot of cleaning to do before the open house tomorrow." Viola looked at me. Her eyes were wet. She wanted to fight. She wanted to scream. I gave her a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. "Go. Stick to the plan." "I love you, Cyrus," she said. Her voice broke. "I love you too, V," I mumbled, slurring my words. "Put the cat out." We did not have a cat, but it fit the character. 2 orderlies grabbed me by the arms. They hauled me up. "Let's go, Pops," one of them said. "Time for bed." As they dragged me out of the room, I looked back at Tyrone. He was shaking hands with Dr. Evans. He was smiling. He thought he had won. He thought he had just signed the deal of a lifetime. He had no idea he had just accepted a contract with the devil. They took me down a long hallway. They stripped me of my new Italian suit. They took my watch. They took my dignity. They gave me a pair of paper scrub pants and a thin hospital gown that smelled of industrial detergent. They threw me into a room with a single mattress on the floor and a heavy steel door. The lock clicked shut with a sound like a tomb closing. I sat on the mattress. It was thin and lumpy. The room was cold. I looked at my left hand. There was a smudge of ink on my thumb. Judas. I started to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then grew into a deep, rumbling belly laugh that echoed off the concrete walls. The orderly looked through the small window in the door. "Crazy old bat," he muttered and walked away. I lay back on the mattress. I closed my eyes. I was hungry. I was cold. I was imprisoned. But I was not defeated. I had the evidence. I had the lawyer. And now I had the perjury. Tyrone had just submitted a falsified document to a medical facility and would present it to a court of law. He had walked right into the trap. I rested my head on my arm. "Sleep well, son," I whispered to the empty room, "because the nightmare is just beginning." They brought me back to the house on Tuesday, not because they had a change of heart, but because the daily rate at the psychiatric facility was eating into their projected profits. Tyrone signed me out against medical advice technically, but he told the staff he was taking me home for hospice care. That was the word he used. Hospice. He was already burying me before I had even stopped breathing. They threw us into the master bedroom. It was the room Viola and I had shared for 40 years, but now it was a cell. Tyrone had installed a heavy deadbolt on the outside of the door. He had screwed the windows shut with 3-inch drywall screws. I saw the fresh sawdust on the sill. He had been busy while I was away. Then they cut the power to the room. They flipped the breaker in the basement. The rest of the house hummed with electricity. I could hear the refrigerator running downstairs. I could hear the television. But in our room, the ceiling fan stopped spinning and the digital clock went dark. Then the water stopped. I went to the ensuite bathroom to wash the hospital smell off my skin, but the faucet just coughed dry air. They had shut off the valve to the master bath. It was 90 degrees in Atlanta that day. The room became an oven. The air was thick and stagnant. Viola sat on the edge of the bed. She was wearing her red dress from the lawyer's office, but now it was wrinkled and stained with sweat. She looked tired. Not the good kind of tired that comes after a day of honest work, but the deep soul-weary tired that comes from heartbreak. I sat beside her. I took her hand. Her skin was dry. We had not had water in 6 hours. "They are trying to break us, V," I whispered. My throat was like sandpaper. "They want us to beg. They want us to knock on that door and promise them everything just for a glass of water." Viola looked at me. Her eyes were dark pools of resolve. "Let them wait," she rasped. "I grew up picking cotton in Mississippi, heat hotter than this, Cyrus. I raised 3 sisters on grits and tap water. These children think discomfort is a weapon. They do not know that for us, discomfort was a neighbor we lived with for 20 years. She was right. They underestimated our tolerance for suffering. They thought because we had lived comfortably for the last decade that we had gone soft. They forgot that before the trucks and the contracts and the money, we were just 2 black kids from the wrong side of the tracks trying to survive Jim Crow and Reaganomics. We were forged in fire. A little heat in a bedroom was not going to melt us. We sat there as the sun went down. The room turned from a sweltering box into a black tomb. My stomach growled. A deep, hollow sound. Tyrone came to the door once around 7. "Dad," he called through the wood. His voice was muffled. "Dad, if you sign the power of attorney over the trust right now, I will open the door." Skylar made pot roast. "It smells really good, Dad. There are carrots and potatoes. Just slide the paper under the door." I looked at the door. I imagined his face on the other side. Smug. Impatient. "Go to hell, Tyrone," I said. My voice was strong. Stronger than it had any right to be. He kicked the door. "Fine. Starve then. We will see how tough you are in the morning." I heard his footsteps stomp away. We huddled together on the bed. We did not sleep. We just breathed. In and out. Surviving was an act of rebellion. Around 8 o'clock the cars started arriving. I heard the doors slamming in the driveway. I heard laughter, high-pitched squeals, deep, boisterous shouts. Skylar was hosting a party in our house. While we sat in the dark upstairs, she was popping corks downstairs. I went to the door and pressed my ear against it. The music started. It was loud, bass-heavy trash that shook the floorboards. I could hear the clinking of glasses. Then I heard Skylar's voice. It was drifting up the stairs loud and slurred. She was drunk. "You guys have to see this," she shouted. "Come on, I want to show you the before picture. We are going to gut it all, but you have to see how these people lived. It is like a museum of bad taste." Footsteps on the stairs. Not just Skylar. A herd. 6 or 7 people. I pulled Viola back from the door. We stood by the window. I put my body between her and the entrance. I was ready to fight. I did not have a weapon, but I had my hands and I had my rage. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Light flooded the room. It blinded me for a second. Skylar stood there holding a bottle of champagne. She was wearing a white cocktail dress that cost more than my first truck. Behind her were her friends, women with too much makeup and men in loafers without socks. They looked like vultures in designer clothes. Skylar pointed at us. "See," she said. "I told you, it smells like mothballs and failure in here." Her friends laughed. It was a nervous, tittering sound. They looked at us like we were exhibits in a zoo. The crazy old man and his wife locked in a cage. "Look at them," Skylar sneered. She stepped into the room. She swayed a little. She walked over to the closet. Viola's closet. She yanked the door open. She started pulling things out. "Look at this garbage," Skylar said. She pulled out Viola's Sunday hats, the ones with the intricate lace and the silk flowers, the ones she wore to Ebenezer Baptist every week for 30 years. Skylar put one on her head askew. She made a face. "Praise the Lord," she mocked. She did a little offensive shuffle. "Who wears this? Who actually spends money on this?" One of her friends, a blonde woman with a nose job, giggled. "It is so vintage, Skylar. It is practically a costume." Skylar threw the hat on the floor. She stepped on it. She ground her heel into the silk flower until it flattened. Viola made a noise, a small, sharp intake of breath. That hat was the one she wore to her mother's funeral. Skylar did not stop. She reached back in. She pulled out the quilt Viola's grandmother made by hand in 1950. It was stitched from scraps of old work clothes. It was history. It was heritage. Skylar held it up with two fingers like it was infected. "And this," she said. "I mean, look at the stains. It is disgusting. We are burning all of this tomorrow. We are hiring a hazmat team to clear this room before we turn it into the yoga studio." She threw the quilt at one of the men. "Here, catch." The man dodged it. He let it hit the floor. "Ew," he said, laughing. "Do not touch me with that." Then Skylar saw the dress Viola had worn to our 30th anniversary. It was a simple blue silk gown. It was old-fashioned now, but it was beautiful. Skylar grabbed it. She tried to rip it off the hanger, but it caught. She pulled harder. The fabric tore, a loud ripping sound that echoed in the silent room. "Oops," Skylar said. She giggled. Well, it was trash anyway. She looked at Viola. She looked her right in the eye. "You know, Viola," Skylar said, her voice dripping with venom. "You should thank me. I am doing you a favor. I am erasing all this tackiness. When we are done with this house, it is going to actually be worth something. We are going to scrub the blackwood right out of the walls." She took a swig of champagne. A drop spilled on her chin. She wiped it with the torn sleeve of the blue dress. She used my wife's anniversary dress as a napkin. I stepped forward, my hands curled into fists. I was going to kill her. Consequences be damned. I was going to wrap my hands around her neck and squeeze until that smile disappeared forever. Viola grabbed my arm. Her grip was like a vice. "No, Cyrus," she said. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. She looked at Skylar. She did not look angry. She looked at her like you look at a cockroach before you step on it. "Enjoy your party," Skylar, Viola said. "Drink your wine. Laugh with your friends. Because the hangover you are going to have tomorrow will last for the rest of your life." Skylar's smile faltered for a second. She saw something in Viola's eyes, something ancient and dangerous. But then the alcohol took over again. She sneered. Whatever she said. "Come on, guys, let's go downstairs. The air up here is toxic." She turned and walked out. Her friends followed her, casting nervous glances back at us. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. We were alone in the dark again. I went to the quilt. I picked it up. I shook off the dust. I folded it carefully and placed it on the bed. I picked up the hat. I tried to fluff the flower back into shape, but it was crushed. I looked at Viola. She was standing by the window looking out at the moon. She was not crying. She was vibrating with rage. "That was the mistake," she whispered. "What was I asked?" "Touching my things," she said. "Taking the money was one thing, Cyrus. Disrespecting you was one thing. But she touched my grandmother's quilt. She mocked my God. She turned to me. "Finish them, Cyrus. End them. Do not leave a single scrap for them to hold on to." I nodded. I went to the air vent in the corner of the room. I knelt down. My knees cracked. I used my thumbnail to unscrew the cover. It was loose. I had loosened it years ago to hide a spare key, but I had repurposed it recently. I reached inside the ductwork. My hand brushed against dust and cobwebs. Then I felt it. The burner phone. I had taped it there 3 months ago when Tyrone first started asking about the will, just in case. I pulled it out. I checked the battery. 4%. It was enough. I turned it on. The screen glowed bright in the dark room. I did not call. A call takes too much power. A call can be overheard. I opened the encrypted messaging app Strickland had installed. I typed 3 words. "Initiate Omega Protocol." I hit send. I watched the little circle spin. Sent. I turned off the phone and shoved it back into the vent. I stood up. "It is done," I said. Downstairs the music got louder. They were celebrating. They were dancing on our graves. Let them dance. Because tomorrow the music stops. Tomorrow the lawyers unleash the hounds. Tomorrow the forensic accountants freeze the assets. Tomorrow the liens hit the property records. And tomorrow at 9 a.m., I walk into that courtroom. Tyrone brought me a suit of shame to wear. He wants me to look like a pauper. I will wear it. I will wear his insults like armor. I lay down on the bed next to Viola. I held her hand. "Get some sleep, V," I said. "We need our strength." She closed her eyes. I lay there in the dark listening to the bass thumping below. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a heartbeat, a dying heartbeat. The countdown had begun. The courtroom smelled like floor wax and cheap coffee, a smell I associated with bad news and broken lives. I sat at the defense table wearing the oversized gray sweatpants and stained t-shirt Tyrone had thrown at me that morning. I looked like a man who had given up. I looked like a man who had forgotten how to tie his own shoes. Beside me sat a court-appointed public defender named Mr. Henderson, who was barely out of law school. He had spent 5 minutes with me before the hearing and had spent 4 of those minutes checking his watch. He thought this was a slam-dunk case. Just another senile old man who needed to be put away for his own safety. Across the aisle, Tyrone sat next to a lawyer who wore a suit that cost more than Mr. Henderson made in a month. Tyrone looked grieving. He held a handkerchief. He dabbed at dry eyes. Beside him, Skylar was trembling. She was putting on the performance of a lifetime. The lawyer stood up. He was a tall man with a voice like oiled leather. "Your Honor," he began pacing in front of the bench. "We are here today with heavy hearts. This is not a decision the Blackwood family takes lightly, but the facts are undeniable. Mr. Cyrus Blackwood is suffering from advanced cognitive decline. He has become a danger to himself and others." He pointed a manicured finger at me. I stared at the table. I let my mouth hang open slightly. I picked at a loose thread on my shirt. "Just 2 days ago," the lawyer continued, "Mr. Blackwood assaulted his son. He destroyed property. He fled the scene of a family gathering in a vehicle he was not fit to operate. He was found wandering and confused by law enforcement. He was admitted to Serenity Hills under an emergency hold where he signed his name as Judas." The lawyer paused for effect. "Judas, Your Honor. He does not even know his own name." The judge, a woman with stern glasses and a tired expression, looked at me. She saw exactly what Tyrone wanted her to see. A husk, a shell. Then they called Skylar to the stand. She walked up slowly, clutching a tissue. She sat down and looked at me with eyes full of fake terror. "Mrs. Blackwood," the lawyer asked gently, "can you tell the court what happened on the night of the birthday party?" Skylar took a shaky breath. "It was terrifying," she whispered. "We just wanted to give him a cake. We wanted to celebrate him." But he snapped. His eyes, they went black. He started screaming about people stealing his money. He grabbed Tyrone. He threw him into the bushes. She started to cry. Soft, hitching sobs that echoed in the quiet room. And then the lawyer prompted. Then he came for me. Skylar lied. She looked at the judge. He ran into the kitchen. He grabbed a carving knife, the big one for the roast. He chased me around the island. He was screaming that he was going to cut me. He said I was a devil. I had to lock myself in the bathroom until he left. I was so scared for my life, Your Honor. I still see his face when I close my eyes. A lie. A bold, vicious lie. I had never touched a knife. I had never chased her. But the courtroom did not know that. They saw a petite blonde woman weeping. They saw a big black man in dirty clothes staring at the floor. The narrative was writing itself. The lawyer handed her a tissue. "Thank you, Mrs. Blackwood. You are very brave." Skylar wiped her eyes. "I just want him to be safe," she sobbed. "I just want him to get help before he hurts someone else." She stepped down. She walked past my table. For a split second, her weeping face smoothed out. She looked at me. She winked. It was a tiny movement, a flicker of the eyelid, but it hit me harder than a fist. She was enjoying this. This was not just about the money anymore. This was sport. She liked destroying me. I gripped the edge of the table under the desk. I dug my fingernails into the wood until they bled. I kept my head down. I did not react. Mr. Henderson leaned over. "Mr. Blackwood," he whispered, "I think we should just agree to the guardianship. If we fight this, the judge might order a permanent lockup in a state facility. If we agree, Tyrone might let you stay in a private home. It is the best deal we are going to get." He had given up. He had bought the lie hook, line, and sinker. I did not answer him. I just rocked back and forth, slightly mumbling to myself. I was counting the seconds. I was waiting for the thunder. The judge cleared her throat. She shuffled the papers on her desk. She looked at Tyrone. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, addressing my son. "This is a tragic situation. The court appreciates your willingness to step up and care for your father. It is clear that he lacks the capacity to manage his own affairs or make decisions regarding his welfare." Tyrone stood up. "Thank you." "Your Honor," he said. His voice was thick with fake emotion. "It breaks my heart to see him like this. But I promised my mother I would take care of him. I just want to bring him home." Liar. He wanted to bring me to a basement cell while he sold my home. He wanted to erase me. The judge picked up her gavel. She picked up her pen. "Based on the testimony presented here today and the medical documents submitted from Serenity Hills, she said I am prepared to grant full legal guardianship of Cyrus Blackwood to his son, Tyrone Blackwood. This includes power of attorney over all financial assets, real estate, and medical decisions." She hovered the pen over the order. Tyrone smiled. It was not a sad smile. It was a predator's grin. He looked at Skylar. She squeezed his hand. They were doing the math in their heads. The house, the pension, the freedom. I looked up. I stopped rocking. I looked Tyrone right in the eye. He frowned. He saw something in my face he did not expect. He saw clarity. He saw the cold, hard look of a man who had stared down union busters and mobsters in the 80s. He nudged his lawyer. The lawyer looked confused. I let my head drop back down. I acted like I was nodding off. Just a tired old man. Tyrone relaxed. He turned back to the judge. He was practically vibrating with victory. The judge lowered the pen to the paper. The tip touched the line. 1 second. 2 seconds. It was over. I was about to become property. Then the doors at the back of the courtroom exploded open. It was not a creak. It was a bang that sounded like a cannon shot. The heavy oak doors slammed against the walls. The sound echoed like thunder in the high-ceilinged room. Heads snapped around. The bailiff reached for his belt. The judge dropped her pen. Tyrone jumped so hard he knocked his chair sideways. Standing in the doorway was a silhouette. He was backlit by the hallway lights. He stepped forward. It was Strickland. He was not alone. Behind him were 3 junior associates in matching gray suits carrying banker boxes. Behind them was a man with a video camera. And behind him was a large man in a dark suit who looked like he ate bricks for breakfast. Strickland walked down the center aisle. He did not rush. He walked with the stride of a man who owned the building, the ground it sat on, and the air inside it. His Italian shoes clicked against the floor tiles like a metronome. Click, click, click. He was wearing a navy blue suit that cost more than Tyrone's car. He carried a briefcase made of alligator skin. He did not look at the gallery. He did not look at Tyrone. He looked straight at the judge. "Your Honor." Strickland's voice boomed. It was a baritone that demanded silence. "I apologize for the interruption, but I must insist that you put down that pen." The judge stared at him. "Who are you?" she demanded. "This is a closed hearing." "I am Arthur Strickland," he said, stopping at the gate. "I am senior partner at Strickland, Vance & Howell, and I am appearing on behalf of my client, Mr. Cyrus Blackwood." Tyrone's lawyer stood up. "Objection," he sputtered. "Mr. Blackwood is indigent. He is represented by the public defender. He cannot afford Arthur Strickland." Strickland laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, like a bark. "Mr. Blackwood could buy your firm, burn it to the ground, and rebuild it as a parking lot with the change in his pocket," Strickland said. He pushed through the gate. He walked to my table. He looked at Mr. Henderson, the public defender. "You are in my seat, son," Strickland said. Henderson scrambled up. He grabbed his files. He practically ran to the back of the room. Strickland sat down next to me. He placed his briefcase on the table. He clicked the latches. He turned to me. He winked. "Ready to go to work, Mr. Chairman," he whispered. I sat up straight. I rolled my shoulders. I brushed the lint off my dirty shirt. I lifted my chin. The fog in my eyes cleared instantly, replaced by the steel that had built an empire. I looked at the judge. "I am ready," I said. My voice was deep and steady. No wavering, no mumble. Tyrone looked like he had seen a ghost. Skylar was gripping the table, her knuckles white. "Your Honor," Strickland said, standing up. "We move for immediate dismissal of this petition with prejudice, and we move for the immediate arrest of the plaintiff for perjury, fraud, and elder abuse." The judge looked stunned. On what grounds, counselor, she asked. Strickland smiled. He reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a flash drive. On the grounds that we have it all on tape, Your Honor, he said. He held up the drive. We have the audio of them planning the commitment. We have the video of them selling the house. And we have the medical report from the National Institute of Neurology dated 3 hours ago that proves my client has a higher IQ than anyone in this room, including myself. He turned to Tyrone. You wanted a hearing, son, Strickland said. You got one. I stood up. I looked at my son. I hope you save some money for a lawyer, Tyrone, I said, because you are going to need a good one. The trap had snapped shut, and the teeth were razor sharp. The air in the courtroom turned electric. The judge leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Strickland. The bailiff stepped closer, his hand on his taser. Tyrone was staring at the flash drive in Strickland's hand like it was a live grenade. Schuyler was looking around frantically as if searching for an exit. Proceed, Mr. Strickland, the judge said. But be warned, this is highly irregular. If this is a stunt, I will hold you in contempt. It is no stunt, Your Honor, Strickland said. He walked over to the AV cart in the corner of the room. He plugged in the drive. May I? He asked, gesturing to the large monitors mounted on the walls. The judge nodded. Strickland tapped a key. The screens flickered to life. The video was crystal clear, 4K resolution, shot from a wide-angle lens hidden in the smoke detector of my kitchen. It showed Tyrone standing over a pot of soup on the stove. He looked nervous. He checked the door. Then he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small vial. He poured a clear liquid into the pot. He stirred it. Just enough to make him sleep, Tyrone muttered to himself on the video. Just enough to make him docile. The courtroom gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the oxygen out of the room. Tyrone jumped up. That is fake. That is AI. I never did that. Sit down, Mr. Blackwood, the judge roared. She slammed her gavel. Strickland played the next clip. It was Schuyler. She was in the living room holding Viola's quilt. She was laughing. She was holding a lighter. Burn it all, she said to her friends. Burn the old man's clothes. Burn the old woman's rags. Once they are gone, we get the insurance money. We get the house. We get everything. And I get my Hermes bag. Finally. The video cut to another angle. It was the night they broke into the basement. It showed them with the real estate broker. It showed them agreeing to sell the house for cash. It showed them discussing how to use the proceeds to buy a boat. The judge's face had gone from stern to furious. She looked at Tyrone and Schuyler with a mixture of disgust and rage. This is admissible evidence obtained via security cameras installed by the homeowner Mr. Cyrus Blackwood 3 years ago, Strickland said. The timestamps are verified. The audio is unedited. He paused. He looked at Tyrone. And we have the toxicology report from the hair sample Mr. Blackwood provided this morning, Strickland added. It shows traces of benzodiazepines, the same class of drug found in the vial your client was holding. You poisoned him. Tyrone slumped in his chair. He looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Schuyler was crying now, real ugly tears. She was realizing that her life as she knew it was over, but Strickland was not done. Your Honor, he said, the plaintiffs claim my client is cognitively impaired. They claim he does not know his own name. They claim he is a danger to himself. He pulled a document from his briefcase. It was thick, bound in blue leather. This is a comprehensive neurological evaluation conducted at 7 a.m. this morning by Dr. Cyrus, the head of neurology at the National Institute. The judge took the document. She opened it. She scanned the pages. Her eyebrows went up. Dr. Thorne concludes that not only is Mr. Blackwood free of any signs of dementia or cognitive decline, but he possesses an intellect in the 99th percentile, Strickland said. He scored perfect on memory recall, perfect on pattern recognition, perfect on logic. He turned to the court. Mr. Blackwood is not senile, Strickland said. He is brilliant. He built a logistics company from scratch that is currently valued at $80 million. He manages complex supply chains. He negotiates international contracts. He has been playing a role, Your Honor. A role forced upon him by a society that sees an old black man in work clothes and assumes he is simple, and a role exploited by a son who underestimated him. $80 million. The number hung in the air. Tyrone looked at me. His mouth fell open. 80 million, he whispered. Schuyler stopped crying. She looked at me. Her eyes were wide. She was doing the math. She was realizing what she had thrown away. The judge looked at me. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, "is this true?" I stood up. I did not use the table for support. I did not groan. I stood up smooth and straight. I rolled my shoulders back. I let the persona of the tired old gardener fall away like a heavy coat. I looked at the judge. I looked at the bailiff. I looked at the lawyers. And then I looked at my son. "It is true, Your Honor," I said. My voice filled the room. It was deep, resonant. It was the voice of a man who commanded fleets. I stepped out from behind the table. I walked to the center of the room. I did not shuffle. I marched. They wanted a senile old man, I said. I gave them one. They wanted a victim. I played the part, because I needed to know. I turned to Tyrone. "I needed to know if there was anything left in you worth saving," I said. "I needed to know if the boy I raised was still in there somewhere buried under the gambling and the greed." I shook my head. "But he is gone," I said. "You killed him, Tyrone. You killed him with every lie, with every theft, with every drop of poison you put in my soup." I walked closer to him. He shrank back in his chair. "You want my money?" I asked. "You want the house? You want the legacy?" I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a single quarter. I flipped it onto the table in front of him. It spun, round and round, a silver blur. "There," I said. "That is your inheritance. That is what you earned." I turned back to the judge. "Your Honor," I said, "I am Cyrus Blackwood. I am of sound mind and body, and I am pressing charges." "For what, Mr. Blackwood?" the judge asked gently. "For everything I said. Attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, embezzlement, grand larceny." I pointed at Schuyler. "And for destroying my wife's quilt," I added. The judge nodded. She banged her gavel. "Case dismissed with prejudice," she said. "Bailiff, take the plaintiffs into custody pending charges." The bailiff moved. He pulled out his handcuffs. Tyrone stood up. "Dad. Wait, Dad. Please. I did not know. I did not know you were rich." I looked at him. "That is the problem, son," I said. "You only treat people with respect if you think they have something you want. You did not know I was rich, so you treated me like trash. If you had known, you would have just treated me like a bank." Schuyler screamed as the bailiff grabbed her arm, my hands. "Be careful." I watched them being dragged away. Tyrone was crying. Schuyler was cursing. They looked small. They looked pathetic. Strickland walked up to me. He handed me my jacket. "Well done, Mr. Chairman," he said. I put on the jacket. I buttoned it. "It is not over yet," I said. "What do you mean?" Strickland asked. I looked at the door where they had dragged my son. "That was the legal battle," I said. "Now comes the eviction." I turned and walked out of the courtroom. I did not look back. I had a house to reclaim, and I had a wife waiting for me. The war was won, but the cleanup was just beginning. Wait. My voice rang out across the courthouse lobby, stopping the bailiffs in their tracks. They paused, holding Tyrone and Schuyler by the arms. The handcuffs clicked and rattled in the silence. I walked over to them, slow and heavy like a storm front moving in. Strickland stood behind me, arms crossed, a silent sentinel of the destruction I was about to unleash. I looked at Tyrone. He was weeping. Snot ran down his nose. He looked at me with a mixture of terror and confusion. "You called me a gardener's son," I said. My voice was low, but it carried to every corner of the room. "You told your friends I cut grass for a living. You were ashamed of my hands because they had dirt on them." I held up my hands. They were calloused, scarred, big. "You never asked what I was growing in that garden," I said. "So let me tell you." I pointed a finger at his chest. "You work at the West Side Distribution Center," I said. "You walk around that warehouse like you are the king of the world, barking orders at men who work twice as hard as you for half the pay. You think you got that job because you are smart. You got that job because I called the foreman 10 years ago and told him to give you a chance." Tyrone blinked. His mouth opened. "But here is the part you missed," I continued. "I do not just know the foreman. I own the building. I own the land under the building. I own the trucks that pull up to the dock. And I own the holding company that signs your paycheck every 2 weeks." Tyrone's knees buckled. The bailiff had to hold him up. You own the warehouse," he whispered. "I own the whole district," I said. "Blackwood Logistics." Who did you think Blackwood was, Tyrone? Did you think it was a coincidence? I turned to Skylar. She was pale. Her makeup was running. She looked like a melting wax doll. And you, I said, you like to shop. You like the platinum cards. You like the status. You bank with Sovereign Trust, don't you? She nodded dumbly. I bought a 6% stake in Sovereign Trust in 1998, I said. I sit on the board of directors, Skylar. I have lunch with the regional president once a month. I stepped closer to her. I could smell her fear. It smelled sour. When you applied for that black card, the one you used to book your spa days while my wife sat in a hot room without water, the application came across a desk. My desk. I approved it. I wanted to see what you would do. I wanted to see how deep the rot went. You spent $40,000 on handbags in 3 months, I said. You bought a lifestyle you did not earn with money. You did not have to impress people who do not care about you. I leaned in close. I could have paid off your debt with the change in my ashtray, I whispered. But now I am going to buy the debt instead. I instructed Strickland to purchase your defaulted notes this morning. You do not owe the bank anymore, Skylar. You owe me, and I am a very different kind of creditor. I collect with interest. Skylar let out a sound like a dying bird. She realized then that there was no escape. No bankruptcy court would save her because I would be there challenging every penny. Tyrone suddenly lunged forward. He broke the bailiff's grip. He threw himself onto the marble floor. He crawled toward me. He wrapped his arms around my legs. He buried his face in my expensive Italian trousers. "Dad, please," he wailed. His voice echoed off the high ceilings. "Dad, I am sorry. I was stupid. I was blind. But I am your son. I am your flesh and blood. Do not do this. Do not send me to jail. Do not take everything." I looked down at him. I saw the top of his head. I remembered when he was a boy. I remembered holding him on my shoulders at the parade. I remembered teaching him to tie a tie. But that boy was gone. The thing clutching my leg was not a man. It was a parasite. It was a creature that consumed and destroyed and begged only when it was cornered. He was crying on my shoes. He was begging for mercy he had never shown me. He had laughed while I sat in a dark room. He had planned to sell my home while I rotted in a cell. "Dad, I can change," Tyrone blubbered. "Let me run the company. I know the business now. I can help you. I can be the son you wanted. Just give me a chance." The audacity. He wanted to run the company he had been stealing from. He wanted to inherit the kingdom he had tried to burn down. I felt a coldness settle in my heart. It was the absolute zero of indifference. I pulled my leg back. I kicked him. It was not a violent kick. It was a shove, a dismissal. Like kicking a stray dog away from the porch. He sprawled backward onto the floor. He looked up at me, shocked. "Get up," I said. My voice was ice. He scrambled back, looking at me with wide, wet eyes. "You talk about being a man," I said. "A man builds. A man protects his family. A man stands on his own 2 feet. You are not a man, Tyrone. You are a beast. You are a scavenger. You eat what others kill. You steal from the hand that feeds you." I looked at the bailiffs. "Get this thing off my floor," I said. Tyrone started to scream, "Dad, Dad." But I was done listening. Skylar saw her opening. She saw Tyrone on the floor, rejected and broken. She decided to pivot. She looked at me with big, tearful eyes. She clasped her handcuffed hands together. "Cyrus, please," she said. Her voice trembled. It was an impressive performance. It was all him. Tyrone made me do it. I was scared of him. He said if I did not help him get the money, he would hurt me. "I loved you, Cyrus. I loved Viola. I was a victim too." She looked at Viola. "Mom, you know me," Skylar pleaded. "You know I would never hurt you. I bought you flowers. I wanted us to be close. Please talk to him. Tell him to let me go. I will testify against Tyrone. I will do whatever you want." Viola stepped out from behind me. She walked up to Skylar. She moved with a grace that defied her age. She looked at the woman who had mocked her hats. She looked at the woman who had used her anniversary dress as a napkin. Skylar smiled tentatively. A glimmer of hope. "Mom," Skylar whispered. Viola did not speak. She pulled her hand back, and she slapped Skylar across the face. It was a sound like a pistol shot. Sharp, loud, final. Skylar's head snapped to the side. A red handprint blossomed on her cheek instantly. She gasped. She looked at Viola in shock. "Do not call me Mom," Viola said. Her voice was low and dangerous. "You are not my daughter," Viola continued. "You are a thief. You are a liar. You came into my house and you disrespected my history. You walked on my rugs with your dirty shoes and you laughed at my life." Viola leaned in close. Her face was inches from Skylar's. "My husband is a king," Viola said. "He built a world for us with his bare hands, and you thought he was a gardener because you could not see past the dirt under his nails. That is your failure, not his." She straightened up. She smoothed her dress. "Take her away," Viola said to the bailiffs. "She smells like trash." The bailiffs nodded. They hauled them up. They dragged them toward the exit. Tyrone was weeping. Skylar was silent, holding her cheek in shock. We watched them go. We watched the heavy doors close behind them. The lobby was silent. Strickland cleared his throat. "That was satisfying," he said. I looked at Viola. She was rubbing her hand. "You hit her hard, V," I said. "She broke my heart, Cyrus," Viola said softly. "But you fixed it." I took her arm. "Come on," I said. "Let's go take our house back." We walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. The air tasted sweet. It tasted like freedom. But we had one more stop to make. The eviction notice was not going to serve itself. We drove straight from the courthouse to the rental property in Buckhead. It was a sprawling estate with white columns and a driveway that cost more than my first house. Tyrone had leased it 18 months ago to project the image of a successful executive. He did not know that the leasing agent reported directly to a holding company I controlled. He did not know that every month when he missed rent, I was the one signing the waiver to keep a roof over his head. I did it because I thought he was struggling. I did it because I thought he was trying to build a life. Now I knew he was just playing dress-up with my money. I pulled the truck up to the curb. Behind me, a convoy of 3 box trucks from Blackwood Logistics pulled in. 10 of my toughest warehouse workers jumped out. They were men with thick necks and callous hands, men who knew the value of a day's work. They looked at the mansion with disdain. They knew who lived here. They knew Tyrone. They knew he was the manager who sat in the air conditioning while they sweated on the loading dock. They knew he was the one stealing from the inventory that paid their bonuses. I unlocked the front door with the master key Strickland had provided. The house smelled of lavender and expensive candles. It was cluttered with the trophies of their greed. Designer furniture, abstract art that looked like spilled paint, a shoe rack in the hallway filled with sneakers that had never touched a basketball court. I turned to the crew. "Clear it out," I said. One of the men, a foreman named Big Mike, looked at me. "Everything, boss?" he asked. "Everything," I said. "If it is not nailed down, it goes to the curb. Do not pack it. Do not wrap it. Just get it out of my house." They went to work like a swarm of locusts in reverse. They grabbed the white Italian leather sofa. They did not pivot. They just jammed it through the door frame, tearing the fabric. They tossed it onto the wet grass. They grabbed the 70-inch television. One guy carried it on his shoulder like a boombox. He set it down hard on the driveway. Crack. I walked through the house, watching the destruction of their facade. I went into the kitchen. The granite countertops were covered in high-end appliances, espresso machines, air fryers, wine fridges. "Out," I said, pointing. The crew grabbed them. Cords dragged across the floor. The sound of glass breaking echoed from the dining room as they cleared the china cabinet. I went upstairs to the master bedroom. It was a shrine to their vanity. Mirrors everywhere. A walk-in closet that was bigger than my bedroom in Decatur. It was stuffed with clothes. Suits Tyrone wore to look important. Dresses Skylar wore to lunch. I grabbed an armful of suits. Silk, wool, linen. I walked to the window. I opened it. I threw them out. They fluttered down like dying birds, landing in the mud below. Big Mike came into the room. He was holding a jewelry box. "What about this, boss?" he asked. "Dump it," I said. He tipped it over the windowsill. Gold chains, watches, and rings cascaded down, clinking against the pavement. Within an hour, the house was empty. It echoed. It was just walls and floorboards now. The lawn looked like a landfill. Their entire life was piled up in a heap of fabric and plastic and wood exposed to the elements. It started to drizzle. The water soaked into the expensive sofa. It ruined the silk suits. I stood on the porch and looked at the pile. It looked like trash, because that is what it was. Without the house to frame it, without the status to prop it up, it was just stuff. Expensive, useless stuff. I locked the door. I put a padlock on the hasp. I taped the eviction notice to the front door. Notice to vacate. Immediate effect. Reason: Fraudulent lease application and non-payment. I walked back to the truck. Big Mike was waiting. Good work, I said. Bonus in your checks this week, he nodded. Whatever you need, Mr. B, he said. We never liked him anyway. I sat in the truck and watched the rain fall on my son's life. He had wanted a mansion. Now he had a pile of wet garbage on the side of the road. But I was not done. I picked up my phone. It was time to sever the professional tie. I dialed the number for the warehouse. The general manager answered. His name was Davis. He was a good man, an old friend. Cyrus, Davis said. I heard rumors. Is it true? It is true, I said. Tyrone is in custody. Damn, Davis sighed. I am sorry, Cyrus. I know he is your boy. He is not my boy, I said. He is a thief. Davis, I want you to go into his office. I want you to box up his personal effects. Actually, forget the box. Put them in a trash bag. Done, Davis said. And then I want you to draft a termination letter, I said. Cause. Gross misconduct, embezzlement, theft of company property, and Davis mark his file. Not eligible for rehire, and flag his social security number in the industry database. I do not want him driving a forklift in this state ever again. That is a death sentence for his career, Cyrus Davis said quietly. He will not be able to get a job sweeping floors in a warehouse. I know, I said. Do it. I hung up. Tyrone was now unemployed. He was unemployable. The industry is small. Word travels fast. The son of Cyrus Blackwood fired for stealing from his own father. No one would touch him. I looked at the time. It was 3:30. Strickland sent me a text. A video file. It was footage from the security camera outside the courthouse. I pressed play. The video showed the front steps of the courthouse. A tow truck was backing up to a white G-Wagon. Skylar's car. The car she loved more than she loved God. A parking enforcement officer was standing there writing a ticket. The tow truck driver hooked the chains to the axle. He did not use the flatbed. He used the hook. He lifted the front end. The bumper scraped the asphalt with a spray of sparks. He dragged it out. I watched the car bounce as it hit a pothole. I had bought the note on that car 3 hours ago. It was technically mine, but I did not want it. I had ordered it repossessed and sent straight to the auction block. I zoomed in on the video. I saw Tyrone and Skylar being led out a side door by bailiffs, presumably being transferred to the county holding facility. They stopped. Skylar saw her car. She screamed. I could not hear it, but I saw her mouth open wide. She tried to run toward it, but the handcuffs stopped her. She yanked against the bailiff. She fell to her knees. She watched her status symbol, her identity, her precious G-Wagon being dragged away like a broken toy. Tyrone just hung his head. He was watching his shoes. He knew the ride was over. I closed the video. House gone, job gone, car gone. There was only one thing left to kill, their hope. I called Strickland. Did you do it? I asked. It is done, Strickland said. I contacted every major credit bureau. I contacted Sovereign Trust. I contacted the credit card issuers. We activated the fraud alerts. We froze the joint accounts. We cut the cards. What is the balance? I asked. 0, Strickland said. Actually less than 0. With the freeze, they cannot access a dime. Even if they had cash in a checking account, they cannot get to it. The system has locked them out completely. And the lawyer? I asked. The fancy one Tyrone hired. He called me 5 minutes ago, Strickland said with a chuckle. He tried to run Tyrone's card for the retainer. Declined. He tried Skylar's card. Declined. He tried to draft an electronic check. Bounced. So he walked, I asked. He ran, Strickland said. He filed a motion to withdraw as counsel immediately. They are alone, Cyrus. They are in a holding cell with no lawyer, no money, and no assets. They are destitute. I leaned back in the seat. I thought I would feel sad. I thought I would feel a pang of guilt. This was my son. I had held him when he was a baby. I had taught him to catch a ball, but all I felt was the cold satisfaction of a balance sheet that finally added up. They had spent years digging a hole with my money. They thought the money was a ladder. They did not realize it was the dirt they were standing on, and I had just pulled the floor out from under them. I started the truck. Let's go home, V, I said to the empty seat beside me. Viola was back at the hotel, resting. She did not need to see this part. This was the butcher's work. I drove away from the mansion. I left the pile of wet clothes on the curb. I left the empty shell of a life. Tyrone was about to find out what it really costs to be a Blackwood. It costs everything. Strickland sent me the surveillance report 3 days later. My private investigator had tracked them to the Starlight Motel on the edge of town, the kind of place where you pay by the hour, and the sheets are never truly clean. They had pawned Skylar's wedding ring to pay for a week in advance. I sat in my office at the logistics center drinking black coffee and watching the video feed from the camera the PI had planted outside their door. It was pathetic. The power couple of Buckhead was reduced to eating fast food on a stained mattress. The audio was crisp. I heard every word of their disintegration. "You are useless," Tyrone Schuyler screamed. She was pacing the small room wearing the same designer dress she had been arrested in, but now it was wrinkled and smelled of despair. "You promised me millions. You told me the old man was senile. You told me he had a fortune stuffed in that mattress and all we had to do was commit him. I never told you to forge the checks," Schuyler Tyrone shouted back. He was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. "That was your idea. You said we needed bridge capital. You said Dad would never notice. I married a future millionaire, not a dishwasher," she spat at him. She kicked his leg. "Do something, Tyrone. Fix this. Go talk to him. Beg him. I do not care what you have to do. Just get me out of this roach motel." "I cannot talk to him," Tyrone said. His voice was broken. "He hates me, Schuyler. Did you see his eyes in that courtroom? He looked at me like I was a stranger. He evicted us. He fired me. He bought your debt just to crush you. He is not going to help us." "Then steal it," Schuyler hissed. She knelt down in front of him. Her eyes were wild. "Listen to me. He is rich, right? He has millions. He keeps cash in the house. I know he does. I saw him take cash out of a tin box in the garage once years ago." Tyrone looked up. "The garage," he whispered. "Yes, the garage," Schuyler said. "He probably has thousands buried in there. He is old school. He does not trust banks. We go back to the house in Decatur. We break in. We find the cash. We take it, and we run. We go to Mexico. We start over." "It is risky," Tyrone said. "Staying here is risky," Schuyler countered. "Look at us, Tyrone. We have nothing. If we do not get money soon, we are going to be on the street. Do you want to sleep under a bridge? Do you want to eat out of dumpsters? Because that is where we are headed." I watched Tyrone's face. I saw the struggle. I saw the fear. And then I saw the resolve. It was the resolve of a desperate animal. "Okay," he said. "We do it tonight." I turned off the video. I leaned back in my leather chair. They were coming back to the house they tried to sell, the house they tried to steal. I picked up my phone. I opened the app for the new security system I had installed the day after the eviction. It was military grade. Motion sensors, silent alarms, high-definition night vision. I did not call the police. Not yet. I wanted to catch them in the act. I wanted there to be no doubt, no misunderstanding, no way for a lawyer to argue they were just retrieving personal items. I wanted them to break the glass. I drove to the house around midnight. I parked down the street in the shadows just like I had done when I was on the run. But this time, I was the hunter. I sat in the dark and waited. At 2 a.m., a rusted sedan pulled up. It was probably stolen or borrowed. The headlights cut off. Two figures emerged. They were wearing dark hoodies. They moved quickly toward the back of the house. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. I watched them creep through the backyard. Schuyler tripped over a garden hose and cursed. Tyrone shushed her. They reached the back door. Tyrone tried the handle. Locked. He tried to shoulder it open. It was reinforced steel now. It did not budge. They moved to the garage window, the same window Viola and I had used to escape. Tyrone found a brick. He wrapped it in his jacket. He smashed the glass. It made a dull thud. The glass shattered inward. I waited. They cleared the jagged pieces. Tyrone boosted Schuyler up. She slid inside. He followed. They were in. They were now officially committing burglary, breaking and entering, criminal trespassing. I tapped the screen on my phone. System armed. Inside the garage, the motion sensors tripped, but no siren wailed. I had set it to silent mode. Instead, the magnetic locks on the doors engaged. The steel shutters I had installed over the windows slammed down with a mechanical clang. They were trapped. I switched to the interior camera. Tyrone and Schuyler spun around. They heard the shutters close. They ran to the window. It was blocked by solid steel. They ran to the door connecting to the house. Locked. They ran to the garage door. Locked. They were sealed in a concrete box. Then I activated the lights. Floodlights mounted in the corners of the garage blazed to life. 5,000 lumens of blinding white light. They screamed. They covered their eyes. They were exposed. And then the voice-activated speaker system kicked on. I pressed the microphone button on my phone. "Welcome home, son," I said. My voice boomed inside the garage, amplified and distorted. Tyrone looked around wildly. "Dad," he screamed. Dad let us out. We just wanted to talk. You broke a window to talk, I asked. You are holding a crowbar, Tyrone. That is not a conversation starter. Skylar was pounding on the steel shutter. Help, she screamed. Help us. There is no help coming, I said. Only consequences. I dialed 911. I have a break-in in progress, I told the dispatcher. 2 intruders. They are armed with crowbars. They are trapped in my garage. Yes, I am the owner. Cyrus Blackwood. I hung up. I watched them on the screen. They were panicking. Tyrone was trying to pry the garage door open with the crowbar. It was useless. Skylar was crying curled up in a ball on the oil-stained floor. They looked small. They looked like children who had played with fire and burned the house down. 5 minutes later, the blue lights washed over the street. 4 cruisers. They did not come quietly this time. They came with guns drawn. I got out of my truck. I walked up the driveway. Officer, I said, raising my hands. I am the homeowner. They are in the garage. The sergeant looked at me. He recognized me from the news. Mr. Blackwood, he said. Stay back, sir. We will handle this. They approached the garage. Open the door, sir, the sergeant said. I tapped my phone. The garage door rolled up slowly. The scene inside was pathetic. Tyrone and Skylar were huddled together in the center of the room, blinded by the floodlights. Police, the sergeant shouted. Drop the weapon! Get on the ground! Tyrone dropped the crowbar. It clattered loudly on the concrete. He raised his hands. He was shaking so hard his knees knocked together. Do not shoot, he sobbed. Please do not shoot. Skylar put her hands on her head. She was hyperventilating. They swarmed them. Officers grabbed their arms. They forced them face down onto the concrete. I watched as they cuffed my son. I watched as they cuffed the woman who had mocked my wife. They dragged them up. Tyrone looked at me standing in the driveway. I was wearing my suit. I looked like a titan. He looked like a criminal. Dad, he screamed. His voice was raw. Dad, tell them. Tell them it is a mistake. I am your son. You cannot let them take me. I walked closer. I stopped 3 feet away. I looked him in the eye. You broke into my house, Tyrone, I said. You came to steal. You came to take the last thing I had left. Dad, please, he begged. I was desperate. I needed the money. You always need something, I said. You need money, you need a job, you need a bailout, but you never needed a father. You just needed a bank. I looked at the sergeant. Press charges, I said. Burglary, attempted theft, property damage, and add violation of a restraining order. Strickland filed it this morning. Restraining order, Skylar shrieked. We did not know. Ignorance is not a defense, I said. Get them out of here, I told the sergeant. They dragged them to the cruisers. Tyrone fought. He thrashed. He screamed my name over and over. Dad, Dad, Dad. It echoed in the night air, a ghost of a word. It meant nothing to me now. I watched them shove him into the back seat. I watched the door slam shut. I watched Skylar being placed in a separate car. The sirens wailed. The cars pulled away. Silence returned to the neighborhood. I stood in my driveway alone. My garage door was open. The broken glass glittered on the floor. I felt a deep hollow ache in my chest. It was the death of hope. I had held on to a tiny sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, Tyrone would redeem himself, that he would hit rock bottom and find some character. But he had not found character. He had found a crowbar. He was not my son anymore. He was just a thief. And I treat thieves the same way I treat competitors who try to steal my business. I bury them. I closed the garage door. I walked back to my truck. I had a meeting in the morning with the district attorney. I was going to ensure that the plea deal offered to them was not a lifeline but a noose. I started the engine. Goodbye, Tyrone, I whispered. I drove away, leaving the empty house behind. It was just a building now. The home was gone. The visiting room at the Fulton County Jail smelled of industrial cleaner and fear. It was a cold, sterile box divided by thick plexiglass that was scratched and clouded by years of desperate conversations. I sat on a metal stool, my back straight, my hands folded on the ledge. I was wearing my charcoal suit, the one I had bought for war. I looked like a CEO. I looked like a man who owned the building. On the other side of the glass, a door buzzed open. A guard led Tyrone in. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on his frame. He had been in for 3 days, but he looked like he had aged 10 years. His hair was unkempt. His eyes were red and swollen. He shuffled to the stool and sat down. He picked up the black phone receiver. His hand was shaking so bad the cord danced against the glass. I picked up my phone. I did not say anything. I just watched him. Dad, Tyrone breathed. His voice was tinny through the speaker. Dad, thank God you came. You have to get me out of here. It is a nightmare. The guy in the cell next to me screams all night. The food is rot. I cannot sleep. Please, Dad, just pay the bail. I will go to rehab. I will do community service. Anything, just get me out. I listened to him beg. I watched the tears leak out of his eyes and track through the stubble on his cheeks. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger. Just a vast, empty silence where my love for him used to be. I looked at the guard standing by the door. The guard nodded at me. He knew who I was. Everyone knew who I was now. Tyrone kept talking. He was rambling. It was Skylar, Dad. She is crazy. She manipulated me. She said we deserved it. She said you owed us. I tried to stop her, but she threatened to leave me. She threatened to take the kids if we ever had any. I was a victim, Dad. You have to believe me. I leaned forward. The movement made Tyrone stop. He pressed his forehead against the glass, trying to get closer to me, trying to find the father he thought he could fool. Are you done? I asked. My voice was calm. It was the voice of a man closing a business deal. Tyrone blinked. Yes. Yes, I am done. Are you going to help me? I reached into my breast pocket. I pulled out a folded document. I smoothed it out on the ledge. I pressed it against the glass so he could read it. It was a plea agreement. But not one from the district attorney. It was one from me. I spoke to the DA this morning, I said. They are charging you with 20 counts. Burglary, fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. You are looking at 30 years, Tyrone. Minimum. You will be an old man when you get out. Tyrone started to hyperventilate. 30 years. No. No, Dad, please. I tapped the glass over the document. There is a way out, I said. He looked at the paper. He looked at me. Hope flared in his eyes. A desperate, pathetic hope. What is it, he asked. What do I have to do? I told the DA I would advocate for leniency on the burglary and the fraud charges, I said. I told them I would ask for probation on those counts. That would drop your sentence down to maybe 3 years. With good behavior, you could be out in 18 months. 18 months, Tyrone whispered. I can do 18 months. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I held up a hand. There is a price, I said. Anything, he said. You have to testify, I said. Against Skylar. I watched his face. I watched the gears turn. The DA needs a witness to pin the attempted murder charge, I said. The poisoning. The incident on the mountain where you tried to get me declared incompetent so you could pull the plug. They need someone to say it was her idea. They need someone to say she bought the drugs. They need someone to say she planned the timeline. I looked him deep in the eyes. You have to say she did it all, Tyrone, I said. You have to say you were just following orders. You have to bury her. You have to send your wife, the woman you promised to love and cherish, to prison for life so you can walk free in 2 years. I waited. I expected him to hesitate. I expected him to show a shred of loyalty. I expected him to ask if there was another way. Skylar was a monster, yes, but she was his monster. They were partners. They had plotted together, slept together, but Tyrone did not hesitate, not for a second. Where do I sign, he asked. The speed of it hit me like a physical blow. He did not even blink. He did not ask what would happen to her. He did not care. He was a rat willing to eat his own mate to escape the trap. I felt a wave of nausea. This was my son, this creature who would sell anyone to save his own skin. I slid the paper through the slot at the bottom of the window. I handed him a pen. He grabbed it. He signed his name so fast the pen tore the paper. There, he said, pushing it back. I signed it. I will tell them everything. I will tell them she mixed the poison. I will tell them she forged the checks. It was all her dad, I swear. He looked at me, expecting approval, expecting a pat on the head. I took the paper. I folded it. I put it back in my pocket. You just signed her death warrant, I said. She deserves it, Tyrone said. His voice was hard now. She got me into this. She ruined my life. No, Tyrone, I said. You ruined your life. She just handed you the shovel. I stood up. I hung up the phone. Wait, Dad, Tyrone shouted. He slammed his hand against the glass. Where are you going? When do I get out? You have to call the lawyer. You have to get me bail." I looked down at him. He looked small. He looked like a mistake. I picked up the phone one last time. "I am not calling anyone, Tyrone," I said. "I just wanted to see if you would do it. I wanted to see if there was any floor to your character, any bottom to your soul." I shook my head. "There is not," I said. "You are a bottomless pit." "Dad, please," he cried. "I did what you asked. I signed the paper. We are family." I looked at his signature on the plea deal. The ink was still wet. "You are not family," I said. My voice was a whisper, but it filled the room. "You are a witness," I said. "You are a snitch. You are a coward." I leaned in until my breath fogged the glass. "I raised you to be a king," I said. "I worked double shifts. I sweated in the sun. I built a legacy so you could stand tall, and you chose to crawl. You chose to be a snake. Dad," he whimpered. "I did not give birth to you," I said. "The son I loved died a long time ago. I do not know who you are, but you are not a Blackwood." I dropped the phone. It swung on its cord, hitting the metal wall with a dull clang. I turned my back on him. I heard him screaming. I heard him pounding on the glass. I heard the guard shouting at him to sit down. I walked to the heavy steel door. I buzzed the intercom. The door opened. I walked out into the hallway. I did not look back. I walked through the checkpoints. I walked through the metal detectors. I walked out into the parking lot where Viola was waiting in the truck. She saw my face. She knew. "Did he sign it?" she asked. I nodded. "He signed it." She looked away. She wiped a tear from her cheek. "Then he is gone," she said. "Yes," I said. "He is gone." I started the truck. I drove away from the jail. I had the paper in my pocket. It was the key to Skylar's cell. It was the nail in Tyrone's coffin. Justice was coming, but it tasted like ash. The trial of Skylar Blackwood took place 6 months later during a humid Georgia autumn. I sat in the back row of the gallery wearing a tan linen suit holding Viola's hand. We were not there as witnesses this time. We were there as spectators to the final act of a tragedy we had survived. Tyrone took the stand. He looked like a ghost. His suit was ill-fitting, bought off the rack at a discount store. His hair was thinning. He did not look at me. He kept his eyes fixed on the prosecutor as he detailed every aspect of the conspiracy. He told the jury how Skylar had researched the drugs. He told them how she had forged the checks. He told them how she had planned the timeline of my demise to coincide with the closing date on the house sale. Skylar sat at the defense table shaking her head violently. When Tyrone described how she mixed the sedative into the soup, she screamed. "You liar!" she shrieked. "You coward! You said we were partners!" The judge banged the gavel, but the damage was done. The jury saw the truth. They saw two rats fighting over a sinking ship. It took the jury 4 hours to return a verdict. Guilty on all counts: attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse. The judge sentenced her to 20 years in state prison. She collapsed when she heard the number. She had wanted a life of luxury. Instead, she got a 6x8 cell and a jumpsuit that was definitely not designer. As they dragged her away, she looked back at me one last time. Her eyes were full of hate. I looked back with nothing but pity. She had played the game and lost everything. Tyrone got his deal: 5 years probation, community service, restitution. He avoided prison, but he did not avoid punishment. The industry blacklisted him just as I promised. He could not get a job managing a lemonade stand in Atlanta. I heard from Davis that Tyrone was working for a sanitation company, now riding the back of a garbage truck picking up trash at 4 in the morning. I saw him once about a month after the trial. I was stopped at a light in my new truck. The garbage truck pulled up next to me. Tyrone was hanging off the back wearing a neon vest and gloves stained with muck. He looked up. He saw me. He saw the leather interior of my truck. He saw the peace on my face. For a second I thought he would wave. I thought he would try to say something, but he just looked down. He turned his back to me and grabbed a trash bag. He threw it into the compactor. The light changed. I drove on. He was exactly where he belonged. He was cleaning up the mess. We sold the house in Decatur. Too many ghosts. Too many bad memories in the walls. We sold it to a young couple just starting out. I gave them a good deal. I hoped they would fill it with better memories than we left behind. We moved 2 hours east to Lake Oconee. I bought a house in a gated community. It is not a mansion. It is a home. It has high ceilings and big windows that look out over the water. It has a dock where I keep a fishing boat that I actually use. It is quiet here. The only sound is the water lapping against the bulkhead and the wind in the pines. Viola loves it. She has a garden that is twice the size of the old one, but now she does not have to tend it alone. I hired a landscaping crew. I told them their only job is to do whatever Mrs. Blackwood wants. If she wants to plant roses, they dig the holes. If she wants to move a tree, they move the tree. She wears her sun hat, the new one she bought in the city, and she directs them like a general. She looks 10 years younger. The stress lines around her eyes have smoothed out. She sleeps through the night now. I spend my mornings on the deck drinking coffee that costs too much and reading the reports Strickland sends me. Blackwood Logistics is thriving. We just acquired a competitor in Savannah. My net worth has gone up another 10 million in the last quarter. But I do not go into the office much anymore. I have good people running the day-to-day. Davis is the VP of operations now. He earned it. I realized something during those dark days in the garage. I realized that building an empire is pointless if you do not have a castle to enjoy it in. I sit here and I watch the boats go by. I wave at the neighbors. They know me as Cyrus, the retired businessman. They treat me with respect, not because of my money, but because I carry myself like a man who has walked through fire and came out holding the torch. Sometimes I think about the warehouse. I think about the grease and the diesel and the noise. I miss it a little. But then I look at Viola sitting in the sun reading a book, and I know I made the right choice. We are safe, we are free, and we are together. That is the only luxury that really matters. Strickland came to visit last Tuesday. He drove his Porsche up the long driveway and parked next to my truck. We sat on the deck and watched the sunset. "Here are the papers, Cyrus," he said, handing me a thick binder. "The foundation is officially registered, the Viola Blackwood Legal Defense Fund. We put $5 million into it to start. Its sole purpose is to provide top-tier legal representation to elderly people who are being exploited by their families. We hire the best lawyers, sharks like Strickland, and we unleash them on greedy children who think their parents are easy targets. It is a good legacy," Strickland said. "It is going to scare the hell out of a lot of people." "Good," I said. "Let them be scared. Let them know that if they come for the old folks, there is a lion waiting in the grass." Strickland stayed for dinner. Viola made her famous pot roast. We laughed. We told stories. For the first time in a long time, the laughter felt clean. It was not covering up pain. It was just joy. After Strickland left, Viola and I sat on the dock. The sun was going down, painting the sky purple and orange. The water was like glass. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a new number. Unknown caller. I knew who it was. Tyrone. He called once a month, usually when he needed rent money or when the regret became too much to bear alone. He probably wanted to apologize again. He probably wanted to tell me he was changing. I looked at the screen. I thought about the boy I raised. I thought about the man who tried to imprison me. I thought about the signature on the paper. Judas. I pressed the side button. I sent the call to voicemail. I powered the phone off. I took Viola's hand. Her skin was warm. Her grip was strong. "Who was that?" she asked, looking out at the water. "Nobody," I said. "Just a wrong number." She squeezed my hand. She knew. She always knew. But she did not say anything. She just leaned her head on my shoulder. "Look at that sunset, Cyrus," she whispered. "It is beautiful." I looked at her. I looked at the life we had reclaimed from the ashes of betrayal. "Yes, it is, V," I said. I took a deep breath of the cool lake air. "We won," I said softly. Viola smiled. She closed her eyes. "Yes, we did." "Old man," she said. "Yes, we did." We sat there until the stars came out. The king and his queen in their castle by the water. The war was over. The kingdom was secure. And for the first time in 69 years, Cyrus Blackwood was truly at peace. I spent 40 years building an empire, but my greatest battle was fighting for my own dignity against the very people I raised. I learned the hard way that you cannot buy loyalty and you certainly cannot inherit character. True wealth isn't about the trucks you own or the balance in your trust fund. It's about the peace that comes from living authentically with people who love you, not what you can provide for them. If your family treats you like a resource instead of a human being, you have every right to close the door. Do not set yourself on fire to keep ungrateful people warm. Respect is earned, not given even to your own children. If you believe that respect must be earned and justice should always be served, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of truth and redemption. Let me know in the comments. Would you have given Tyrone another chance, or did he get exactly what he deserved?